In this video, I'm going to introduce you to XCode 5, which is the iPhone development platform. We're going to look at the interface, creating a new project, and the steps you go through to develop a simple iPhone application. So this is the screen you'll see when the application first launches. I've got no recent projects, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new XCode project. Now I'm presented with a sheet of templates I can use, and for the first example we're going to use a single view application. So choose that one and click on Next. We're going to give it a product name, which I will call Hello World. The organisation name is whatever you want it to be. The identifier, again, you can choose whatever you want, but it should be a reverse URL format. And the class prefix is the name it's going to add to the front of my controller file. Traditionally, I just use the term home. I'm aiming it at an iPhone only, and I can then click on Next, and I'm going to save it to the desktop for the sake of simplicity. So here we are. So this is the development environment you're going to be using during this module. Now across the top we have the test button, and I can choose my iOS simulator I want to use. I can choose my device if it's plugged in here. And here's my project properties on the screen in front of us. On the left hand side, this is my project navigator, which shows all the files for my project. And on the right hand side, I've got various tabs which allow me to change things such as properties and look at the documentation. So let's have a look at the files. Now, two files which are given, which you'll very rarely touch, are the app delegate files. Very rarely do anything with those. But underneath that, I have a file called a storyboard file. And this storyboard file is my user interface, or my view. So if I click on here, I can see there's my phone screen, and I can add controls to this now. So in this example, I'm simply going to add a label, like so, and I'm going to add a button. Now, once I've added controls to my view, I can look at the properties and change the properties. So I can change my label and the text colour if I wish to for my label. Let's have a nice deep purpley colour. And I can also drag and drop things around and rearrange things. And and I can drag it to the edge here. I can centre my text. I can change the size and change properties using the properties window. Underneath I've got my button, and I'm going to change the name of the button to Click Me. Title is going to be plain, it's going to be Click Me, and that's changed the label on my button. So now I've designed my user interface, and my next job is to go and set up my public interface for my controller file. So let's hide some of these panes, and I'm now going to change my view from the standard editor to the assistant editor. And on the right hand side I want my controller file header file, like so. There's the header file for my controller, and here's my user interface. And I'm going to connect these. I'm going to create an outlet, which we talked about in the video, and I'm going to create an action. If you don't understand the concept of outlets and actions, I would suggest you watch the video which discusses the iPhone platform, and especially the video that talks about Model View Controller, before you carry on with this video. So there's my label. If I hold the Control key down and drag into my interface, I can create an outlet to my label. I'm going to call it my label, like so, and I connect, and I now have an outlet which allows me to change, it gives me getters and setters for my properties. Now the button, I need an IB action. So I Control drag, and instead of an outlet this time, I'm going to choose action, and I'm going to call this button clicked. And the object that's created this is a UI button. The event is called touch up inside. It's where basically someone's tapped on the screen inside the button shape. So I connect this, and I've now connected my view to my controller. So now all that remains for me to do is to add some code so something happens when I click on that button. So let's go back to the standard editor, and let's use the breadcrumbs to change to my home view controller.m. And you can see at the bottom here, I have a method that's been created by my target action. So any code I put in here is going to be triggered when I click on the button. So let's put something to the log file so we can make sure everything works. And let's test this now. So I've got my phone type selected. I click on run. I don't have to save the code at all. It saves before it compiles. And it will now run on a phone simulator, which doesn't quite fit on the screen. If I click on the button and go back to my Xcode window, you can see at the bottom, there's my log message. That proves that the IB action is wired up correctly. Another way of testing this is to look at the sidebar. If there's a circle with a dot in it, it means it's connected to part of the user interface. If there's just a circle without a dot, it means it hasn't been connected properly. So now I'm going to change the text in my label. So the way I do this, self.myLabel, there's my property for my label, dot text, which is my NS string property, equals hello world. And then notice there's a semicolon at the end of each of the lines of code. And if I run it now, my application should be complete. And you can see it's changed the text property on the label to hello world. So hopefully that's given you a brief introduction to Xcode, and you should now be able to go away with the information from this and the other videos you watched to be able to attempt the first lab. But before you do that, make sure you watch the lab video so you know exactly what you've got to do.